What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Bitcoin Economy Podcast. Excited to have Brandon here. And Brandon, I gotta start by asking you, what is a DAT?
DAT. Well, acronym. A DAT is an acronym, but I can expand on that. So, digital asset treasury company. I think my high level definition would just be that it would be any publicly traded corporate company that holds Bitcoin or crypto natively on its balance sheet. That's
Okay.
it.
And why? So I feel like DATs are the hot topic this year and these days. Like
Yeah.
I've been to a few crypto conferences, and now there's DAT summits, and like everyone's like DAT this, DAT that, and it started out of nowhere. So what's like the genesis of this? Where did it start, and how did you get involved?
Sure. Um, So, I think obviously started with Saylor. He was the first, public CEO to put Bitcoin on a balance sheet back in August of 2020, and then remained pretty much the only, well, there's companies like Coinbase, et cetera, who hold crypto, who hold Bitcoin. Um, but he was the only one like accretively engineering the accumulation of it as an asset through capital markets. Um, and so I think as the new admin, the big unlock was, the new admin coming in, I think, late 2024, and a lot of things just started to open up. And so we started to see these, to go back to your definition of what is that, I think when the average person, well, first of all, when the average person hears that, they have no idea what it means. So when somebody in crypto uses that term, I think what they think it means is actually not how I defined it. It's probably more so a company that's like a pure play, accretively trying to accumulate crypto. Um, so I would actually differentiate, how most people think of what a DAT is and why we're seeing, this hype wave around having summits and all this stuff. Um, but yeah, I think, why is it happening? Because of regulatory changes that have opened some floodgates. And I think we're just going to start to see, Bitcoin and tons of other crypto we've seen too. There was just that $1 billion XRP DAT, like, you know, so I think it's just the beginning. How long this trade opens up, you know, who knows, or how long it lasts, who knows. When I say trade, I mean like how long do these things, you know, trade at a premium and people
Mhm.
just buy on a company's ability to creatively accumulate more crypto. How did I get involved? I was semi early in the MicroStrategy trade as an investor, and then I've been in crypto a long time. I've been very interested at the inevitable intersection of crypto and traditional finance. I mean, crypto is now just a bucket underneath
Mhm.
finance. I think that was always inevitable. And so I've always just been, I think, as a lot of people in this space have, it's not some like I'm some futurist, forward thinking guy. It's just kind of inevitable. But
Falling upwards
falling
into
upwards.
crypto.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, um, long story short, I mean, a buddy of mine and I co-founded what is Next Layer Capital around a year ago, which was late 2024, um, to help advise these Bitcoin treasury companies or any public company that wanted to put Bitcoin on its balance sheet. And our other co-founders uh, were all traditional finance investment banking background. And so us two, more Bitcoin crypto native, paired with these guys who had actual, Wall Street capital markets experience and came together to do advisory for this trade. And that's kind of what we've been doing for the last 12 months or so.
Nice. So let's going back to the DATs and micro strategy, honestly, I see headlines in the news a lot where it's like MicroStrategy has like Micro Sailors on a podium and he's like, we just did some arbitrage to get a free $1.5 billion in crypto or in Bitcoin. And I'm so confused sometimes about the financial engineering that's like actually happening behind the scenes. And it's working, obviously, and he does all this like crazy stuff with the preferred equity, like the financing instruments. Can you maybe go in a little bit on like what's actually happening with these DATs? Like what sort of financial engineering are they doing to make this possible?
Yeah. I mean, I'll give the super simple explanation
Please
because
do. I need it.
I mean, it's what I needed too. I mean, like I'm a tech, crypto startup guy, not necessarily, quant capital markets sophisticated guy. So, I think that the simplest way to put what's happening with MSTR is Sailor's able to issue debt in order to raise capital from investors. And he's able to issue this debt with near 0% interest because of how collateralized his existing balance sheet is.
Mm,
And he's able to issue this debt at near 0% interest, receive dollars from investors, use those dollars to buy more Bitcoin. He's also issuing shares, which technically dilutes shareholders. However, if you're, if you are a shareholder and you're clearly following, the strategy here, or at least trying to, you understand that all that you really care about long term is that your Bitcoin per share goes up. And
mm,
as long as Bitcoin continues to go up in dollar terms, you're happy if your Bitcoin per share is going up, even if you stop buying MicroStrategy shares and you just sit and hold them. So I mean, that's my attempt at explaining it relatively simply. There's a lot more to unpack, and then there's
mhm.
also a lot more to unpack around what he's doing with the prefs, and that gets into credit and all sorts of things. And I'm honestly no expert there, um, but it is super interesting that he's offering these other types of financial instruments where investors can get Bitcoin and MSTR exposure while also getting paid out like a stable 8 to 12% on their capital per year. So
When you say 8 to 12% paid out, is that's not like as a dividend? That's just the share price increasing, right? Or
no,
or, or
it's a dividend.
oh,
Yeah,
really? I didn't even realize. That's pretty good.
yeah. At least as far as I understand. So yeah.
um, well, I mean, it's interesting, and I feel like MicroStrategy was the first one, so kudos to you for jumping on that. I always see those stock charts where it's like MicroStrategy versus Nvidia versus everything else. And last year, MicroStrategy was not many people know that MicroStrategy was the top performing stock, and just by accumulating Bitcoin. But now I feel like there's been a lot more. So like, I think GameStop's involved. There's DATs popping up all over the place. You have Australian DATs and Philippines DATs and DATs in every country. Why why are people opening up DATs everywhere? What's like the economic rationale or benefit for doing it in all these different markets?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a geographic arbitrage, or at least there's like a widely followed and adopted thesis that is there will be a MicroStrategy-esque company in
Mhm.
every capital market around the world. And the reason for that is, again, put simply, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, so I have to, break things down simply for myself. But like put simply, there's a lot of constrained capital in public markets. For example, like a pension fund. They have certain requirements around how they can allocate capital, right? And they can't just go to Coinbase and buy Bitcoin. They might have to, invest X% of their portfolio into this certain category of equities. And, that's just one small example of how there's a lot of capital in public markets that has certain requirements around the ways that they need to invest it. And so what that means is it's a way for certain entities to get exposure to Bitcoin that they can only get in a capital market. And so why does that matter? Well, US investors have found MicroStrategy to be that thing or that company that they try to get that Bitcoin exposure through. Now we've obviously seen more companies, a lot more companies in the US enter as well, but the opportunity that really presents is there's like this geographic arbitrage of, that we've also seen played out with like a Metaplanet, which started in Japan as a $10 million motel chain and is now a multi-billion-dollar Bitcoin bank, which
Yeah.
most people can literally not wrap their heads around. There are people in finance that are extremely intelligent, that have been in the game for a long time. And as soon as you say something like that, they're just like, oh my God, that doesn't make Ponzi. Like, doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
But the thesis to answer your question is that the metaplanet, the metaplanet, you know, case study is actually that MicroStrategy thesis playing out, where there can be a new one of these in essentially every country that has somewhat of a thriving capital market, public market, around the world.
Yeah. So you're enabling investors that otherwise wouldn't have access to buy Bitcoin to be able to purchase it. And this, I guess the initial innovation was like the ETF in general. So an ETF can buy Bitcoin, and then now what's happening is uh, a pension fund can't buy the ETF directly, but they can buy a stock in a company that is buying Bitcoin. So it unlocks like a huge amount of buying power for these larger funds.
Yep. And then the other nuance, and there's probably more, but I would just point out the other nuance is that an ETF is not accretively accumulating Bitcoin, right?
Yeah,
It's one-to-one Bitcoin exposure. So it might be perceived as, less risky, but then there's also, what you said, where there's certain requirements.
do you think there's any risks with all these DATs popping up?
um, well, the interesting thing that we're seeing right now is, and so a quick like comment is there's so much speculation around how do we value these companies, like what are the most important metrics to look at, right? And it's all over, conversations are happening all over Twitter. I think MicroStrategy alone is doing over $4 billion of volume per day. I think the total treasury market is doing around maybe 60. Um, but so as a side project, which is now kind of becoming more than that, I started an analytics dashboard for all of this madness that's happening because everyone's trying to value these companies. So it's bitcoinquant.co. And
Let's see it. I haven't seen this. This is some alpha.
yeah, I don't know. Can you share your screen on these things?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think so.
No worries.
Yeah,
Um,
we're limited by our software here.
no worries. But yeah, for anybody watching this as a recording, bitcoinquant.co uh, provides tons of analytics and metrics around all these Bitcoin treasury companies. Um, and so, okay, you asked me about like what are the risks. So we did see the first acquisition M&A happen a couple weeks ago with Semler, which
Mm.
was trading very poorly. I think they were maybe at like a zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.6 MNAV and got acquired by Strive. So the interesting, there's obviously always risks. I think, if it come, which a lot of the market is trading at a discount to NAV right now. My personal opinion is that, say you're a company trading at zero point 0.6 to your NAV, you're not going to get, in my opinion, or at least we haven't seen it yet, you're not going to get bought at 0.6 because that's a 40% discount to your actual holdings, which is Bitcoin.
Mhm.
Uh, I think that the downside is definitely, like, the risk is getting bought at a discount to your actual holdings, but I don't think it's going to be at like a zero point 0.5 or a zero point 0.6, or how a lot of these are trading today. So I'm sure there's other risks, but, like, in terms of, or you just go private again, right?
Mhm.
Which, who knows? Like, it obviously depends on a lot of other variables and factors, like how much debt these companies have, and all of that. And again, I'm no expert. I'm not familiar with what it's like to go private or anything like that. But I don't see, because these are essentially banks, at least the DATs are that are running this playbook, because they're banks, like, they have the assets. It's not like they don't have the
Yeah.
assets, right? So I don't know. What are your
What?
thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. One thing I'm confused about is like, so the balance sheet has, let's just say you're trading at, and I'm looking at the website, bitcoinquant.co for anyone out there, bitcoinquant.co. Uh, but looking at the website, I'm seeing MNAVs of also almost like 50 cents on the dollar for Bitcoin for a lot of these companies. I'm curious why there isn't just like a mass movement of the Carl Icons of the world just scooping these things up and then selling the Bitcoin out. Right? It seems like an obvious play. There's probably, some debt structure or something preventing it, but
Yeah.
like why wouldn't you if you're getting Bitcoin for pennies on the dollar? What do
Well,
you think?
my thesis, I think, I mean, I agree with you. I think there's probably a lot of these conversations happening right now. We just haven't seen the news headlines yet. That's what I think.
Mm,
Um, and there's only one company in the market as of today, which is October 24th, 2025, that's even trading at a premium, and that's
yeah.
Strategy, right?
Yep.
So if you're already trading at a point 0.9, which the second to 10th best ones are, even you're not in a position to go out and absorb these other companies. So I almost feel like it would need to be somebody outside of this, like, DAT
Mhm.
bubble.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe Carl Icahn, if you're listening, you could
There you
stop trying
go.
to acquire Apple or Dell and just let up some Bitcoin.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's going to be super interesting to see how this shakes out,
Yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure. For sure. So what so when you're looking at your dashboard here, which I have pulled up, like what's exciting for you? Are you basically trying to find what the lowest MNAV to Bitcoin is and investing there, or are like how are you thinking about this market and the public companies that are being traded? Or are you just like, hey, strategy actually has the best management, best playbook. I think they're going to do the best in the long term. Like if I'm investing, I'm just going to stick with like the blue chip equivalent.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I'm a picks and shovels guy. That's why I built the website. So I'm helping everybody else figure out that question, which is the $1 million question. There's no clear answer. Like, even the smartest people in the space will have completely, I'm not going to drop any names, but, like,
Mhm.
will have completely different opinions on the actual metrics that matter.
Mm.
And that's why this I don't know, like, that's why this is just such an interesting time, because there's so much money flowing around. There's so little visibility into the and transparency into like the metrics, the balance sheets, like all the different ways of how people are valuing these companies, a ton popped up this year, and now we're seeing, a pretty bad market.
Mhm.
So it's such an interesting time. I think to answer your question, like, would I just buy the biggest discount? Like, no, I don't think that's a great thesis.
Okay.
I think obviously the like the word discount suggests like a positive connotation of like I can get this thing for cheap. Like, yeah, just because you can get it for cheap doesn't mean that number is going to go up necessarily. I guess
Mhm.
to go back to my previous point, I personally don't see how these things, like, say there's a company trading at a point 0.5, like at, even as a CEO, like I'm not selling the company at a point 0.5. It doesn't make, I have the assets, right?
Mhm.
So like if we're struggling and yeah, we can give a little bit of a discount just because our share price is struggling, blah, blah, blah. Like we end up, you know, calling for helicopter support and selling at a point 0.9, but like not selling at a point 0.5. So I don't know. I mean, I would still try to think strategically about like, okay, everyone's hurting. So of all the companies out there that aren't strategy, what are the ones with the good teams with sophisticated capital markets experience? Do they have any underlying business? Like, how do they differentiate from the rest of the sea of red? Because they're essentially going to be everyone's trading at a discount, but those are going to be the ones that get, freed and rescued first. And as an investor, you want to hedge your risk and mitigate as much risk as possible. So you'd want to try to pick whatever, companies you think have the chance of either being acquired or to get out of the mess that they're in.
Also, as a caveat, this is not investment advice. Please do
Not
your own,
investment advice.
your own diligence and research.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, uh, when I see Naka trading at like point 0.5 NAV, and I really do like David Bailey. I mean, look what he's done for Bitcoin, right?
He's a
Like
beast.
he's a beast. He's a
I
beast.
say this to I'm saying this all the time right now. I'm like, dude, I just would never bet against David Bailey. So
Yeah,
to your point, I mean, maybe 3 months from now, or maybe it's not 3 months, but it's 6 months, or maybe it's not 6 months, but it's 12 months. Like maybe we look back at this and you're like, holy shit, I could have hammered Naka at a point 0.5 MNAV.
yeah,
Why didn't I? Why didn't I? Right? It's always hindsight 2020.
yeah,
So, but I agree with you, man. And that's a perfect example of, again, my previous point of like, who are the people you want to bet on
yeah,
when everything goes to shit? Well, it's the guy who's been bending reality for the last decade in the space,
yeah. Isn't that cool?
forcing things into, started a meetup at his college and now he's advising the president. So, like, perfect example of like, I don't know, not financial advice, but like, who do you bet on in this scenario?
Yeah. Also, those conferences print money. Like
Yeah,
conferences are a good business. So not only has he got the president to speak, got like every foreign leader to come speak on Bitcoin throughout the world. But he's built an incredible business underlying the whole thing. So yeah, maybe he needs to figure this out, or at least that's what the public markets are saying. But I wouldn't bet against that.
yeah, totally. And it's not just him. I mean, it's basically it's everyone but strategy. So sentiment has changed, and I think it absolutely comes back, but maybe it's not as much of an aggressive. People use the term play. Is it a playbook company? And when they say
Yeah,
playbook company, what they're referring to is Saylor's strategy of creatively stacking Bitcoin. I don't know that ever gets back to what it was. I do think it makes a comeback, but we're not going to see like $3 billion SPAC pure play raises ever again, in my
yeah.
opinion. Maybe I'm completely
I
wrong.
hope not. Yeah. So one problem that I do have potentially with these stats is the concentration of Bitcoin, right? So the purpose of a DAT and what Michael Saylor is doing is he's just going to keep buying Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin. At some point, I mean, he already has north of 2.5% of the total Bitcoin supply. So at some point, uh, imagine if anyone, um, any individual, let's just say, or any company had, uh, even in the United States, north of 2.5% of the total money supply. Right? It's like it's one thing if it's the government, but like it's a whole other thing if we have this decentralized currency, but actually an individual entity, let's just say he owns 5% at the end of the day. Um, do you think that's a problem for Bitcoin or going against the thesis? And if Bitcoin does become the reserve currency, and these like select groups of people have a fortress of it, um, which they'll never sell. Is that a problem for the sustainability?
Not at all. Like not even a
No.
little.
Okay.
No,
All right.
not even a little bit. I mean, Bitcoin is a protocol,
Mm.
and it hasn't. If Saylor owns 5%, which I don't think he's far off from, or say he
Mhm.
even gets up to 10%, it doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, if he were to sell off for whatever reason, you know, MSTR collapses, he has to sell
Mhm.
everything off. Like, yeah, price goes down, but people are scooping that up. It's a protocol at the end of the day. Like owning the token, owning Bitcoin itself has nothing to do with like the underlying fundamentals of Bitcoin itself. And that's like very widely misunderstood. And there's a lot of FUD, you know, articles and people in the news talking about that. Like Bitcoin has gotten to where it's at today because of what it is as a protocol.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't think concentration of Bitcoin at all is a risk to Bitcoin? It's just like an individual owning a bunch and like that's that separate from the network working.
Yeah. I mean, I think the term risk implies that there's like an underlying vulnerability of the protocol, which there is none. Is
Mhm.
there a risk to price dropping or potential manipulation, etc.? Sure, but there's zero risk to the protocol.
My thought is more so like a political risk. Like you know, if Bitcoin over so 10x puts it like just the most valuable asset in the world, north of gold, still less than the total equity value of the entire market, but north of gold by market cap. Um, I mean, MicroStrategy's balance sheet has what like 40 billion of Bitcoin on it. Do you know off the
I
top?
don't know off the top of my
Bitcoin quant. Come on, come on.
head. Yeah, I gotta check my site.
Yeah, 70 billion dollars worth of Bitcoin. Uh, so let's just say 10x. People are saying even 100x, right? We're talking trillions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, a large percentage of the money supply. And if everyone's using this thing, it's a lot of power. It goes from just being a financial instrument to being like hey, you own a large portion of the Earth's wealth. Do you think that could cause like some political instability? And one more thing is when you see a lot of wealth inequality in general, you tend to see rise of socialist movements, right? So of people who are like, hey, the rich have it so good, we want part of it, and wealth inequality drives that. So would that happen here? Is there a risk of something like that happening?
It's a good question. It's kind of, we talked about this a little bit when we were in person in New York. I mean, I don't think so. I think we're so far away from, obviously we're all bullish on the future of Bitcoin, but I think we're still so far away, like a decade plus, decade or multiple of like Bitcoin reaching, you know, surpassing, maybe not surpassing gold, but like becoming what everyone thinks it will be one day. Um, in terms of like the wealth gap widening, I think it's an interesting question because, if you look at it where it is today, I think it's the opposite of widening the wealth gap. Everyone has the opportunity to invest today, but as Bitcoin gets, well, as the price of Bitcoin goes up, it's going to be obviously increasingly more difficult to own, let's just say, one Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin goes up, it's going to be obviously increasingly more difficult to own, let's just say, one Bitcoin. So the people who have one Bitcoin, or the families that inherit one Bitcoin from their dad or their mom or whoever who bought it, it's kind of like it's kind of no different from like the families that bought up, all the brownstones in Manhattan or all the homes in
Mm.
Malibu or, all the homes on Star Island in Miami. So to your point, in the future, it does become like there's certain people who are never going to be able to go and get that. So I think it might, yeah. I mean, it's a valuable, but that's because it's so valuable and scarce and desirable. And so, yeah, I mean, but in the future, there could be something new. I'm not saying like a better Bitcoin. I mean, there could be, but like,
Mhm.
there's always these opportunities that present themselves. I think this is the first one that lives in the digital realm that we're seeing, it's like a gold rush.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and Bitcoin has like the Lindy effect to it, right? Like it's been around the longest, so therefore it's more likely to stay around the longest. Hasn't been hacked. Yeah, the whole spiel. We don't need to get into the merits of Bitcoin, but
Yeah.
um, so shoot, I forgot the question I was going to ask you. Just
Okay.
completely slipped.
All good.
Um,
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
everything that starts as something that represents equality and freedom and, everyone can get access to, if its properties are actually good, I feel like it's inevitable that eventually, over enough time, that asset becomes something that is dominated and owned by the wealthy.
I did like the framework when I was at the Treasury conference. One guy was saying that he's just thinking like in his mind, I need to own 100 Bitcoin because if I own 100 Bitcoin, then that's $100 million. So it just like simplifies the framework so much where it's like, what can I do to to accumulate 100 Bitcoin? And then this guy will remain nameless, but he went all in. He had a bunch of businesses. He sold everything and just dumped it all into Bitcoin. Every single asset he owns. Uh, and I'm hearing more and more of this. And Michael Saylor also did this with strategy. What do you think it takes to make such a like full full leap of faith move to do everything Bitcoin? And have you done it?
Um, it just takes a shit ton of conviction, and the way that you get that conviction is by just putting in the hours of actually understanding. I think it's by actually understanding the protocol
Mhm.
and what it is. I mean, that's how I got into this space. I mean, it's we can go down such a rabbit hole, but like Bitcoin teaches you so many things. And I think, what is money is just one of those things. Why does our current money, get inflated into oblivion? What does that even mean? What are the implications of that on me and my day-to-day life of my family, right? But there's so many other really fascinating parts about Bitcoin. I think a lot of it is, a lot of that conviction derives from studying it at a protocol level as a technology. And I think once you understand, like, Bitcoin was essentially designed to go up. It was basically created as a hedge against everything that existed in the world today, which at the time, 2009, but we still have all the same problems. So as long as nothing changes fundamentally with our current money, I think it just becomes obvious that Bitcoin will continue to go up over time. And once you've done the homework and once you have enough conversations, like, yeah, for sure, it takes a little bit of, you know, reprogramming, a lot of reprogramming of like your brain and how you were taught to think. But, um, a lot of people who have done it, it's just a matter of, some people did it in 2012, some people did it in 2016, some people are still doing it today. And, you know, it doesn't matter that these people are doing it so much later. I mean, obviously their returns are less, but like Bitcoin is an ego test because people think, oh, I'm later, oh, I missed it. But it's like, no, if you understand, it doesn't matter how much, the guy who bought in 2012, yeah, he's a billionaire because he put 100 grand into Bitcoin, you know, in over a decade ago. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't affect you. Like, are you not going to go out and start a startup because somebody else, became a billionaire by creating Robinhood? It's kind of like the same, you know, framework to look at it through. And so I think it's an ego test. And if you understand what it is as a protocol and you're able to check your ego, it makes a ton of sense to full port. And for me personally, I mean, I do some angel investing in venture just because I like it. I have, I own a condo, but I don't plan on buying more real estate. So yeah, I mean, I have a majority of my portfolio in Bitcoin.
Let's go. I like the phrase you you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so what do you think about I guess the macro conditions where you have Robinhoods and more fintechs really diving into supporting crypto, supporting not just Bitcoin but like real world tokenized assets. What do you think about TradFi really getting into Web3?
Well, I think it's super interesting because a lot of the narrative around, all of these protocols launching, all these L2s and this one and that one funded by Paradigm and Andreessen, not to knock them, but like a lot of the narrative was like, hey, we're building the future of the internet. Come build it on our protocol. And now after enough time has passed, we're seeing Robinhood, Stripe, all these big companies just launch their own. And they're like, nah, I'm good. I'm worth, multi, you know, tens and tens of billions of dollars. Like we can just launch our own protocol, and kind of cut a lot of people out. I think it's super interesting. I mean, it's kind of undeniable that stablecoins have become a really powerful thing and killer app of the use case of blockchain technology. It doesn't solve at all the thing. It solves different things than Bitcoin. More so money movement, not monetary inflation. Um, but I think we're still early innings, and over time, I mean, they're obviously investing billions and billions. Like a company like Stripe's obviously investing billions and billions of dollars in stablecoin infrastructure, in tokenization, and so I think we're still so early in terms of adoption with all of that stuff. But it doesn't solve. It's very different. It doesn't solve, the things that or reason that Bitcoin was created for.
It's so crazy that Tempo just started out of nowhere and they did a what $500 million Series A at like a $5 billion valuation.
Yeah,
Like this is nuts.
super
I
nuts.
to the side of actually no, this totally relates to crypto and what Robinhood's doing. I think there's a huge problem in general with the current venture capital ecosystem. Like I think Masatoshi Son, ruined it for everyone back in the day. So he basically he came in with the biggest balance sheets in the entire world, and I think he did this with Yahoo initially. But he would just deploy hundreds of millions of dollars and pick the winners for the VC game. So what this caused and what started to happen is that companies would go public later and later and later because you don't need capital anymore as quickly because you can get it from these later growth capital companies would go public later and later and later because you don't need capital anymore as quickly because you can get it from these later growth capital companies. But what
Yep.
that means is that now the individuals, we don't have access to invest in the Stripes of the world, or Airbnb goes public at $100 billion valuation, and the little guy just like doesn't have access. Uh, so you can't get these venture esque returns, and all of those returns are going to the later stage Series D, E, F venture investors. So I think it's a huge problem, and I think crypto is kind of coming in and solving it by tokenizing securities that are private. I'm curious
Yep.
what you think about that new paradigm that's really coming about.
Yeah, man. I mean, I would totally agree. I mean, we just saw a few days ago, I don't know if you saw the Echo acquisition.
No, I didn't.
No, so Echo was created by Kobe, who's like one of the most OG people in all of crypto. Um, it got acquired for $375 million by Coinbase. And it's
Damn.
basically, yeah, it's basically a platform that does essentially what you just said. I had seen it before, but I had never taken the time to like sign up. It's not super rigorous, but like you have to be an accredited investor, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But it basically is capital raising, fundraising for startups on chain, community, like more community style. So I agree. It's super interesting. Like even as a potential founder or previous founder, like it's something that I would for sure do for like at least a percentage of my of my fundraise for people
Mm-hmm.
who are bullish enough. Obviously, there is a lot of strategic, like raising strategic capital in terms of what doors can these people open if they're VCs, like if they're a good
Mm-hmm.
VC, they know everyone, they know this politician, they know this company, they know like so, you don't get that from retail. So it's still important to take in strategic capital who are financially incentivized to actually open doors for you. But I do think it is really cool of like I do think the concept of like democratization around fundraising and early stage venture um, is super interesting, and I think it there's going to be a lot more of it for sure. And it's why everyone's playing around with you know it to a degree. It's why people are trading meme coins. It's like Pump.Fun made it so extremely easy to speculate and invest early on a trend or hype. These things aren't startups, but like um, you even look at like a Pudgy Penguins, right? Like the Pengu token, I believe launched on Pump. They were an
Yeah.
existing, you could call them a startup, right? I mean, they are. And their token at one point was like a $5 billion market cap. So
So crazy. So
insane.
crazy.
And so it's undeniable. Like these are just numbers, right? Like, and so one of my things is like, yes, as a store of value, long-term capital placement, like Bitcoin all day, right? But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that like really frustrates me in this space is like people a lot, especially a lot of like maxis, try to deny or just ignore or all of this other stuff that's happening. And
Mm-hmm.
even if you think like the underlying fundamentals of Pengu are dog shit, like can you at least talk about the fact that it's at a $5 billion market cap, you dummy? Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
insane. Like, there's something to talk about there. Why is that happening? There's undeniably some crazy innovation and unlocks happening in broader tokenization. And so I think it's, super interesting.
Yeah, it's not something that you want to just blatantly ignore, right? It's like
No.
the people are voting with their money that like, hey, they're missing out on something and they're allocating here.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, it's like you can be a Bitcoin maxi, whatever, but also recognize there are merits to crypto and Web3 in general.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's merits to being an open-minded free thinker, and that's how a
yeah,
lot of people claim that they got themselves into Bitcoin so early, which is awesome. But like, you can't stop being paying attention to undeniable things.
agreed. So we're coming up on time here. I just want to say thank you so much for joining in. This has been super fun for me. Any parting words you want to leave with the audience here?
Oh boy. Um, Bookmark this, I guess. October 24th, 2025. DATs are all trading at a
Yeah,
discount.
right.
Have Bitcoin's at what? What is Bitcoin at?
110.
110. Let's see how good Davis and I's takes were. But no,
Yeah,
thanks
let's
for
see what
having me.
happens with Naka.
Yes, that's gonna be should we have hammered it today? We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. Well, awesome. Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate you jumping on, and yeah, until next time.
Cool, bro. See ya.